In today's discussion, students, we shall be dealing with the concept of life processes. Particularly, we shall be understanding about the concept of excretion. So if you are having more questions or if you wanted to know more details about the concept or any kind of queries, you can please feel free to reach out to us. So you can utilize the comment section for reaching out to us. Okay. So we shall quickly start with our today's session. I could see many of you are joining the session. That's really fantastic. So we shall be waiting for a few more seconds for others to join and then we'll starting with the session. Okay. So as I have told you, today's discussion will be the concept of life processes, and majorly we will be focusing on the concept of excretion. So do you all remember what we have learnt in a previous session? In the previous session, we have understood about the life processes concept. We have dealt with the concept of nutrition and then respiration, then transportation, and yes, now we are at the last topic, that is the concept of excretion. Yes, so before the start, I want every one of you to please place a notebook and pen along by your side so that whenever we are discussing any important concept, you can definitely have a note of it. Yes, I could see many of the students have joined the session. Shall we start? Let's get started. Yes, so students, the topics that we are going to cover in today's discussion will be the ways of waste removal, particular to different kinds of living organisms. Then we shall be understanding about the main parts of the human excretory system, followed by excretion in human beings, like the formation of urine, how the formation will be there, all the mechanisms will be understanding. And we shall have an emphasis on the structure of nephron and the parts of nephron. How the nephron being considered to be the structural and functional unit, we shall have a glance at it, followed by the mechanisms or the steps of urine formation. So we shall also be understanding about the artificial dialysis. We shall be understanding about the organ donation. And yes, we shall also understand about the excretion with respect to the plants. So these are the concepts that we shall be understanding in today's discussion. So coming to the ways of waste removal and coming to the concept of excretion. In the previous discussions, we have known that living organisms is going to depend upon food for meeting the energy requirements. So as a part of various metabolic activities, there are various ways that will be secreted, various waste will be generated. So what do you think, what would happen if these waste materials are not getting excreted out? So what happens when the waste materials are piling up? Okay, let me give one example. Imagine there is a locality where all the trash will be getting thrown and there is no one to remove that, and all the trash getting piled up within a one single place. What happens? Unhygienic conditions prevail, various decomposition things happen, and microorganisms will be prevailing in that area, of course, because of which the disease occurrence happens. Yes or no, do you all agree? So that is not good for the living kind, right? There should be necessity for clearing all the trash, and in the similar manner in our body also, when the waste materials are getting produced, the waste materials should be removed. That is really very essential. Otherwise what happens? All the waste material gets piled up and this leads to the toxicity. So that is the reason we are having the main process of excretion, which is a biological process. So what does this biological process do? It helps in the elimination or the removal of various waste substances. So how we can define excretion to be? It is a biological process by which the living organisms are removing harmful metabolic waste products. Okay, so do you think the process of excretion will be similar in all the living organisms? Is that so? Or do you think it is different? Of course, it should be different. Na? The process of excretion is not the same with respect to all the kind in our biological systems, in our biological world, in our planet Earth. Starting from unicellular to a complex multicellular organisms, there is a variation within the living organism. There is a lot of structural complexity being posed when we compare the higher organisms with that of the unicellular. So we cannot say that all the living organisms will be having the same levels of excretion. Definitely, we can state different types of organisms are having the different ways through which they are removing the waste material. Okay, do you all agree? Yes. So now let's see what will be the ways of waste removal. If you could take single cell or unicellular organisms like many of the organisms we have, let's take the examples of amoeba and paramecia. So what they do, they will be throwing out the waste materials through the cell surface. Since they are unicellular, the single cell itself perform all the activities. So the single cell itself performs nutrition and respiration, transportation, excretion, movement, all the things, all the characteristics will be exhibited by the single cell itself. So through the cell surface, by the process of diffusion, which means the movement of substances from a region of a high to a region of low concentration, there is a movement. So with respect to the waste products, when various metabolic activities are getting carried out, waste accumulation will be there, right? So inside these single cells, the waste will be generated, means their concentration inside the bodies of the unicellular organism is very high when compared with that of the surroundings. So what happens from a high to low concentration areas? There will be the diffusion of the waste substances. So do you think diffusion alone is enough with respect to higher multicellular animals? Yes, no, definitely it is not. Diffusion cannot be alone sufficient with respect to large multicellular organisms. So, the large multicellular organisms like humans, fishes, frogs, and birds, animals, they are characterized by the presence of some certain special body parts or organs which will be responsible for the removal of waste. So we can find with respect to humans, we have the kidneys for the filtration of the blood, for the removal of the unnecessary or unwanted or waste substances. See how beautiful the kidneys are, right? They are like vein shaped. We can easily draw the structure of kidney. So the humans use the kidneys for the blood filtration so that there is an elimination of the unwanted or the waste substances, and particularly we could find there is a removal of the liquid waste. Now you might have a question. What with respect to the large intestine of the digestive system? Remember, there we have discussed the large intestine, particularly the rectal region, will be temporarily storing the undigested food, the waste substances, and the urge. When the urge comes, the undigested food will be eliminated through the anal region. Okay, here there is a removal of the liquid waste from the body. So now let's enter into the concept of the main parts of the human excretory system. So what will be the main parts? The human excretory system characterized by the presence of a pair of bean-shaped kidneys. So these are the kidneys, and from the kidneys you can find on both sides long tube-like structures are emerging, right? And what they are nothing but the ureter. So this will be the ureter on both sides. So where does the ureter end? Into a bag-like structure, a muscular bag-like structure. So what is that? This one over here, it is a urinary bladder. Urinary bladder. And urinary bladder, it is ending with a pointed pin-like structure, right? So what it is? It is a urethra. Through the urethra only, there is an elimination or the removal of the urine. Okay. Now, if you could see the parts of the human excretory system, what else you could find over here apart from the four main things? You could see the blood vessels associated with it, right? What are they? We could see the presence of renal artery and renal vein. Remember, whenever you got the term renal, do remember it is the one which is associated with the kidneys. Okay, so whenever you got the term pulmonary, tell me with which term it is associated with? Pulmonary, the term is associated with lungs. Okay, you need to blindly remember, take care of this terminology. When it comes for the kidneys, we call it as renal. When it comes for the lungs, we call it as a pulmonary. So, what else do the excretory system is provided with? Of course, the renal artery, renal vein, they are a part of the transportation system. We cannot deny the fact. But we can say that here the kidneys are having the supplies of renal artery and renal vein. Now, we could see the pair of bean-shaped kidneys. What is the function of the kidney? The kidneys are responsible for the filtration of the blood. Okay, remember, kidneys are being responsible for the filtration of the blood. And now, what is getting formed? Urine is getting formed. There is a production of urine. The urine will be traveling through the tube-like structures called as ureters, and it enters the urinary bladder. The urinary bladder, which is a muscular bag-like structure, it temporarily stores the urine. So when there is a urge for urination, the urethra, it is the opening, and we could find there is a removal of the urine from the region of the urethra. Okay, of course, we can say that it is under the control of the nervous system and sphincters. Sphincters will be playing a very important role over here. Okay, so we have now understood regarding the human excretory system and what are the parts of the human excretory system. So now let's try to understand about the structural and the functional unit of kidney. We are stating that the kidneys are playing a very important role for the filtration of the blood, right? But how they are filtering blood, how the mechanism comes is through the structural and functional unit of the kidney, nothing but the nephron. Okay, now we shall have an emphasis on the nephron structure. So we can say the structure of nephron comprises of various parts, like we could see the presence of Bowman's capsule, glomerulus, proximal convoluted tubule, loop of Henle, distal convoluted tubule, and what else it has? Finally, the DCT ends with the collecting duct. It is supplied or enriched with peritubular capillaries. So previously we have seen in the kidney structure, renal vein, renal arteries are there, right? So the arteries and veins, they form the capillary network around the structural units. Okay, so we shall have an understanding about all these concepts in a bit more manner, in a clarity way we will be understanding. Okay, do remember, nephron is the structural and functional unit of the kidney. So far from the image, we have understood various parts. But it's very difficult for us to understand about all the things in a non-simplified way, right? So let's try to classify the nephron structure and let's try to understand the main parts, the divisional units. Thereby we shall be understanding what is being formed, what are the different functional units, how the functions of different units will be there. Okay, so let's start with the nephron. The nephron comprises of two parts. What are they? Malpighian body, and second one will be renal tubule. Remember, Malpighian body and renal tubule. The Malpighian body further has Bowman's capsule and glomerulus. Nephron, two parts. Are you getting the point? Nephron, two parts. From Malpighian body, again two divisions. What are they? Bowman's capsule and the glomerulus. What else we have? The renal tubule. From the renal tubule, again we have three divisions. What are they? Proximal convoluted tubule, loop of Henle, and distal convoluted tubule. Nephron, Malpighian body, renal tubule. Malpighian body have Bowman's capsule and glomerulus, two parts, and renal tubule have three parts, PCT, DCT, and loop of Henle. Okay, so now we shall understand about these functional parts. So each nephron being characterized by the presence of two main parts. Remember, two main parts, the Malpighian body and the renal tubule. This is like the same thing that we are discussed earlier in the flowchart. So this part will be that of the Malpighian body. The remaining part will be of that renal tubule. So what will be there in the Malpighian body? Remember, it has two parts. Tell with me, Malpighian body has two parts. What are they? The Bowman's capsule and the glomerulus. So what is Bowman's capsule now? What do you think? So what is Bowman's capsule? Bowman's capsule is the cup-shaped structure. So the cup-shaped structure over here is the Bowman's capsule, and inside the Bowman's capsule you can see the blood vessels are being present, and this is called as glomerulus. Remember this region? The cup-shaped structure will be the Bowman's capsule. Inside the Bowman's capsule, there is a network of capillaries, the blood vessels. What is that called as? It is called as glomerulus. So this is about the Malpighian body. Now coming to the renal tubule. So tell me, how many parts does the renal tubule have? Think. 3 parts. Okay. So what are they? PCT, DCT and loop of Henle, right? So, previously we have understood Bowman's capsule and glomerulus. Now, let me show you in this picture. The cup-shaped structure is the Bowman's capsule and the network of blood vessels. It is enriched with the branchings of the arteries, right? So, the network of blood vessels inside this cup-shaped structure is a glomerulus. So, from the glomerulus, the part we could see what is arising, the PCT, the proximal convoluted tubule, and it is getting looped into a U-shaped structure called as loop of Henle. The loop of Henle again ends with the distal convoluted tubule, which is the distal part. Remember, loop of Henle is having both the ascending and the descending parts. Okay, so the distal convoluted tubule, they together form and they together get united within the collecting duct. Okay, so the renal tubule is comprising PCT, loop of Henle and DCT. See the picture, PCT, DCT and loop of Henle. So now what does the PCT do and what does the DCT do? Let's learn how they are being important. Remember, we are in the concept of structural and functional unit of kidney. What is that? It is a nephron. Okay, so the PCT, DCT and loop of Henle is a part of a renal tubule. So what is the proximal convoluted tubule? Near the end of the Bowman's capsule, we will be able to see the PCT, the proximal convoluted tubule of the renal tubule. Okay, so what does this PCT do? The glucose, amino acids and water are being taken into the blood. What is the function of kidney? It is responsible for filtration. So who does this filtration? The structural and functional unit of the kidney. Nothing but the nephron will be doing the filtration, right? So if you could find when the filtration is happening, there will be some useful substances. Okay, that we wanted. There will be some unnecessary substances that we do not want. So what does this PCT do? The glucose, amino acids and water are taken into the blood from this region. Okay. So now, what does the loop of Henle do? It is a U-shaped region. It is U-shaped part which controls the amount of water as well as the amount of salt in the body. So we can say that it is responsible for the maintenance of water, pH and salt levels. Okay, so this will be the function of the loop of Henle. Loop of Henle have both the ascending part as well as the descending part. Okay, so now next we have the distal convoluted tubule. So in the distal convoluted tubule, which will be the final part, okay, in the PCT loop of Henle, some of the mechanisms are occurring. About the mechanisms we shall understand a bit better manner soon. So we could find the final adjustments of urine are being made within which region? Within the region of the DCT, the distal convoluted tubule. Now tell me, the final urine should enter into which region? Which region it should enter? You have to tell me. See the picture and tell me which region the final urine should enter. After DCT, who is there? Many DCTs get connected together of different nephrons and they end with the collecting duct. Okay, so the collecting duct is where many nephrons are ending, they are getting joined and they are forming the collecting duct. So what does the collecting duct do? The collecting duct will be collecting the urine from the different nephrons and it is guiding this urine towards the ureter. So from ureter to which region now? Ureters are nothing but the long coil structures, right? So if this is the bean-shaped kidney, from kidney we are getting long coil structures. What are they? The ureter, yes. So from the ureter to whom? To the bag-like structure, the urinary bladder, and from the urinary bladder to whom? To the region of the urethra. Okay. So let's see in a tabular format about the part of the nephron and the function of it. Once again, I wanted to tell you. Okay, because when we are understanding the concept, we have to be elaborative, and if we are mentioning it as a short forms, it will be really very helpful for us, right? So you can please try to make a note of this tabular column. We knew the nephron, which is the structural and functional unit of the kidney, have two parts. Yes, the Malpighian body and the renal tubule. Malpighian body, Bowman's capsule and glomerulus. So Bowman's capsule and glomerulus, what is the thing that they are doing? They are collecting the Bowman's capsule. It is collecting the filter liquid from the blood. Okay, whenever there is a movement of the blood, the unfiltered blood, the deoxygenated blood, or the blood that is enriched with much amount of the waste substances, when it is moving through the Bowman's capsule, and particularly the glomerulus will be there, right? When it is moving through the glomerular region, the Bowman's capsule is collecting the filtered liquid. Next we have the glomerulus, which is responsible for filtration of the blood. And what will be the part of the renal tubule? PCT, DCT, loop of Henle. So what does PCT does? It reabsorbs the useful substances like glucose, amino acids or water. And what does the loop of Henle do? It is adjusting the water as well as the salt balance. And what does the DCT do? The DCT will be finally making some adjustments to the urine, and the collecting duct will now be moving the urine towards the region of the ureter, from the ureter to the urinary bladder, from the urinary bladder to urethra. So the urine gets temporarily stored within the urinary bladder, and when there is a feel or the urge to urinate, there is a elimination or the removal of urine through the region of urethra. Got the point, everyone? Understanding? Yes, so give a like if you understood the concept. Now, moving on, let's have an understanding about the mechanism of the urine formation. Okay, so in the mechanism of urine formation, there are a total of 3 steps. So what are they? First, ultrafiltration or glomerular filtration, selective reabsorption and tubular secretion. Remember how many steps? 3 steps. So ultrafiltration, selective reabsorption and tubular secretion. Let's dive into the concept of this. So ultrafiltration or glomerular filtration. What does the term represent? It represents that some filtration is happening. For example, you are very interested in drinking tea or yes, any kind of fruit juices, anything. So let's take the fruit juice itself. Sometimes we see fibers also will be there within the fruit juices, right? Most of you won't prefer it. Then what you will be doing, you will be using a strainer. You will be pouring your juice into that. The fiber part will be separated. You will be having your glass of juice. The same manner, how we are going to prepare a tea? Put some milk, put some tea powder or sugar, or if you wanted, some people will be putting decoction first and then adding milk, right? So finally what we are doing there, we are trying to remove the tea leaf from the liquid part. We do not want the tea leaf because it is waste. We do not require. What we wanted just that liquid part. So in the same manner, in the blood, there are various kinds of waste material. We do not want the waste material, but we wanted our useful material. So first, what happens inside the malphizian body? The blood will be entering. Imagine the tea with the tea powder in it. It will be entering into whom? Into the strainer. Yeah. Now the blood is arriving the glomerulus, through whom there is an arteriole called as efferent arteriole. Okay, through the efferent arteriole. And there is an arteriole that is leaving the glomerulus, that is called as a efferent or afferent arteriole. So the afferent arteriole being wider than the efferent arteriole. So when this is being wider, there is a creation of the pressure differences inside the region of the glomerulus. So high pressure being created in the glomerulus, because of which with pressure there is a filtration of the blood. Okay, now what happened? The tea powder containing tea, now we are separating the liquid part in the strainer, and yes, the same thing is happening. There is a high pressure being accomplished over here because of the differences within the width of afferent and efferent arterioles. So what does this high pressure do? It is forcing some of the water and small molecules, like it might be salts, glucose, amino acids and urea. They will be passing through the pores of podocytes of Bowman's capsule. Again, don't get confused with the word again. What is podocyte? They are the cells. Okay. Now, see carefully: water, salts, urea, glucose, amino acids. Tell me what should be eliminated, what should be remain. So tell me what should be eliminated and what should be remain. Urea, the nitrogenous waste product, not required, it should be eliminated. Some salts which are not required should be eliminated. What is required? Glucose, amino acids, some important substances are required, right? Then can you agree the term that these are getting eliminated over here? No, our body also does not acquaint with it. Okay, so apart from this, what else we can see? There are some large particles. When the blood is flowing, of course, it has the blood cells also, right? The large particles will not be getting strained over here, as we see in the tea and tea powder case. In the tea liquid, the large particles, tea powder is present. Okay, that will be very large when compared with the pores of the strainer, and that should be eliminated out. Now what happens? The large particles like the blood cells and proteins, they cannot pass and they will be retaining within the blood. Okay, so they tend to retain within the blood. Okay, now going back to the question. Glucose is there, water is there, we require most of the substances. Then what happens? Think. Okay, keep on thinking. Meanwhile, I shall have some water and I'll be back. Give me a few minutes. So did you get the answer or not? Still thinking, still the thinking mode is happening, okay? Okay, so I could see many of you are there in today's discussion. I hope you are taking the notes of the important points also, right? So now let's move on. Let's move on with the concept. So the ultrafiltration or the glomerular filtration we are talking about, since this filtration is happening inside the glomerulus, we are calling it as glomerular filtration. Since it is taking place with the help of high pressure, we can call it as ultrafiltration. Even the minute substances are getting filtered over here. So none of liquid gets collected in the Bowman's capsule or after the filtration. We are going to call it as ultrafiltrate or glomerular filtrate, or we can call it as a initial filtrate. Ultrafiltrate or the glomerular filtrate, or we can call it as a initial filtrate. Okay. Now there is the second step called as a selective reabsorption. By this you will be getting the answer for the question that I asked. Sometimes there are some important substances that also get removed or eliminated. But now we want them, we want the useful substances, we are not allowing to let them go out. Now what is happening over here? We are entering into the second step, that is the concept of selective reabsorption. So now what happens? The initial filtrate will be entering whom? Into the renal tubule. Renal tubule, is it a new term for you? No, we already knew it. Malpighian body and renal tubule are two parts of nephron. From Malpighian body, two parts, Bowman's capsule and the glomerulus. The ultrafiltration step have occurred over there. Now, the selective reabsorption step will be occurring within the renal tubule. Renal tubule will be like, not all the process should happen within the single region. Then what I am for? I have to also perform some things, right? So then what it is doing? It is taking the useful substances. Useful substances are getting reabsorbed back into the blood through the peritubular capillary network. So around the loop of Henle, around the PCT, TCT, we have many capillaries, no? So that is nothing but the peritubular capillary network. So now the useful substances should be reabsorbed. The blood will be entering into the renal tubule. What will be the pathway? First it enters the PCT, then the loop of Henle, then the DCT, right? Now inside the PCT what is happening? Inside the loop of Henle what is happening? Inside the DCT what is happening? Let's try to understand. Inside the PCT, most of the water, glucose, amino acids and salts. Salts, particularly the ones which are important for us, they will be getting reabsorbed. Okay, and here they are happening either actively or passively. Now you have to tell me what is the meaning of active transport, what is the meaning of passive transport. Remember, where we have seen this in the concept of respiration, whenever we require energy for any transportation, then we call it as active transport. There when we are discussing ATP, I have told it. Whenever the word active comes, it means that it is associated with the active transport, the ATP, energy requirement. Passive means just purely based upon the concentration gradient or the diffusion gradient. Okay, so the selective reabsorption process occurs both actively or passively based upon the concentration gradient, or some may utilize even the energy in the form of ATP. So now what is happening in the loop of Henle? In the loop of Henle, the water is getting reabsorbed from the descending part, and there is a reabsorption of salts as well. Some useful salts are getting reabsorbed from where? From the U-shaped loop of Henle, right? Yes. Now we could see in the DCT, what is happening in the DCT? In the distal convoluted tubule, the remaining salts and water are getting reabsorbed. There is a reabsorption of the salt and water based upon the body's requirement. Okay, so this is what happening so far. in the selective reabsorption process, there is a uptake of or reabsorption of some of the useful substances like glucose, amino acids, some salts and water specifically. Okay, and if we are depending upon too much water, some of us have the habit, we always get used to hear the term like, when we drink lots amount of water, like 3 liters of water per day, it keeps our kidneys healthy. Yes, definitely. Based upon the body requirement for an adult human being, at least 2 to 3 liters is very essential. So we want to keep our kidneys healthy and we want to depend more on the amount of water. Definitely. I hope you all will be also following the same thing, right? So if you did not do that still now, don't worry. From now onwards, you can just start having lots of consumption of water. Okay. So when we are depending too much on water, we can find there is a less water reabsorption, and you can experience, you can observe, when we are depending upon high amount of water, of course the urine production will also be high, more urine. And during the hot summer days, during the scorching sun, when the sun is very scorching, the amount of sweat, more amount of sweat will be eliminated, and the salts, some small little quantities of urea also gets eliminated. Okay, now we could find there is a reabsorption of more water during the time when water elimination from our body is high, because of which less urine output will be there. Okay, so why this step is essential? The selective reabsorption will be essential for maintaining the balance. For which balance? For water balance, for salt balance and for pH balance. So for all these, who is contributing? The step of selective reabsorption. Now moving on, the tubular secretion part. So in the tubular secretion, the extra waste which are still in the blood, so sometimes, in the tea powder example itself, even though we use a good strainer, we could still find little quantities of the tea powder in the liquid that have filtered. In the same manner, even though the extra waste are being eliminated, there is still some presence of the extra waste in the blood. Like what? Like hydrogen, potassium and ammonia. Sometimes we depend on medicines when we get cough, cold or fever. We take medicines, right? Some medicines will be even still there. So these also should be eliminated out. We do not require them. Otherwise, the toxicity happens to our body. So they are actively transported from the where? From the blood into the region of DCT and finally to the region of the collecting duct. From collecting duct to ureter, ureter to urinary bladder, urinary bladder to final elimination through the region of the urethra. So why this step is important? Why? Because it helps in the removal of toxic substances and also it maintains the acid base balance within our body. Got it, everyone? Yeah, so give me a moment. I'm just checking if any questions are there. I'll pick a question from it and I shall try to answer. Okay, so I could see a question that was being asked, like stating that lungs and skin are also the excretory organs. Can we consider it? Okay, let me tell you. Lungs and skin are considered to be a part of excretory, but the main excretory thing will be of kidneys only. Kidneys are the main excretory units through which there is a filtration of the blood. But still, why lungs and the skin are considered as secondary terminology means, through lungs we can see there is an elimination of carbon dioxide. Okay, go back to the respiration chapter again. Inhalation corresponds for taking off oxygen rich air, exhalation corresponds for giving out the carbon dioxide rich air, right? So through the lungs there is a removal of the carbon dioxide. That's the reason we can consider the lungs to be the secondary excretory organ, not the primary one. The primary function of lung is respiration, the process of breathing only. And coming to the second thing, that is the skin. So through skin also, we could see there is an elimination of the sweat. There is an elimination of what? There is an elimination of some quantity, minute quantity of the salts. So we can say that they are also playing an important role in the excretion. But the primary ones will be that of the kidneys. I hope you got the answer for your question. Yes. So now moving on, in the tubular secretion part, the final urine will be being formed after reabsorption and secretion. The remaining fluid, whatever we are getting, this liquid is called as urine. So what it contains? Urea, creatinine, some excess salt and even the water. Okay, so now the urine flows into the collecting ducts and then to whom? To the region of the ureters. Finally, to whom it is reaching? Into a bag-like structure, that is the urinary bladder for storage. So until we feel the urge to urinate, the urinary bladder will be there as such. It is storing the urine as such. But when there is an urge for urination, then from the urinary bladder, it gets emptied out through the region of urethra. So what are the steps? The formation of urine. Let's reiterate the points. Ultrafiltration, where it is happening? The Bowman's capsule and the glomerulus. What is happening? Blood is getting filtered under the pressure. In selective reabsorption, which happens in the renal tubule, the PCT, loop of Henle and DCT, the useful substances are getting returned to the blood, and the tubular secretion in the DCT and collecting duct, it is happening, right? The extra waste are getting added to the filtrate that should be eliminated, not to the ones that should be reabsorbed. Don't get confused again. Okay, final adjustments within the urine are made over here, and excretion is from where? From the collecting duct to the ureter, to the urinary bladder and urethra. The final urine is getting eliminated. So there are certain points to remember over here. Let me briefly tell them once again. Previously I have explained it elaborately for you. Now I shall want to discuss only in a crisp manner. So the liquid formed first, what it is called as initial filtrate or the glomerular filtrate, and when the blood is filtered within the region of the kidneys, it is containing useful substances now, like what are they? Glucose, amino acids, salts and some quantities of water, and they should be getting eliminated out when it is moving through the renal tubule. The body, through selective reabsorption process, is taking the useful substances. So this is being called as selective absorption. Why? Because majorly the required amounts, what are they? The glucose, amino acids, all these are required now. They will be getting reabsorbed into the blood, and the rest is getting eliminated as which form? As urine form. So upon what it is getting dependent upon? How much of water reabsorbed in the body is getting dependent on what? How much extra water in the body. So if you are depending on more amount of water, more water will be removed as urine, right? So how much waste need to be removed? If there is necessity for the removal of more waste, okay, so more waste leads to less water reabsorption and more urine output. When there is more waste to be eliminated, more urine output will be there. Okay, so after urine is made in the kidneys, it is traveling through ureters, right? So it is like a long tube and it is reaching the urinary bladder. So from urinary bladder is temporarily storing the urine. When it becomes full, of course, there is a pressure being created, there is an urge for urination. We feel the urge, there is an elimination. Okay, so far we have been understanding regarding the concept of the excretion process, the human excretory system and the mechanism of a urine formation. Okay, let me check the chat again, give me of movement. Okay, so a question was asked like a nitrogenous waste, urea is being excreted, right? So it is excreted in dissolved form when compared with that of solid. So the question is why it is getting excreted as a form of liquid but not as a form of solid. See, remember, urea, it is very toxic, right? So if it is there in the solid form, there are chances that it will be creating toxicity and it is damaging the excretory system organs. So that is the first scenario. Urea will not be getting uh, excreted as a solid form. It should excrete as a liquid form. Why? Because it creates toxicity if it is being present in the solid form. And the urea, if it is there in the solid form, there are chances that it blocks the kidneys and it blocks the elimination of the urine. Because not only urea, there are various other nitrogenous substances or various other substances that should be getting eliminated, right? So if urea is being present in the solid form and all the other ones are getting eliminated as liquid, there are chances that the urea blocks the excretory organ part. So that is the reason it should definitely get eliminated out in the form of solid matter only. Sorry, liquid matter only, not the solid matter. Okay, so now let's enter into the concept of artificial kidney, that is the hemodialysis. So what happens if the kidneys do not function properly? There is a hindrance in the elimination of waste material. Okay, so kidneys generally, they clean our blood, they filter our blood. What they do, they are removing the extra salts, urea, and even the and the causes of kidney failure completely. It might be many reasons. It might be because of severe infection, or sometimes when accidents occur, there might be chances for the physical injury to the kidneys. Physical damage to the kidneys might occur. Apart from that, students, what do you think apart from these things? What else may be the causes for the failure of the kidney? There are many, right? So there is a reduced blood supply to the kidneys. Heart failure might also create it, and very high BP or diabetes for a longer time are also the causes of the kidney failure. Okay, so what happens if kidney fail happens, and if the kidneys are not able to function properly, what is going to happen? Toxicity build up. Eventually, if the scenario worsens, it might also leads to the death of a person. Yes, it definitely. Now in the kidney failure conditions, what the doctors will be suggesting, either they will be suggesting an organ transplantation if it is a severe one, or they will be suggesting the hemodialysis. So the doctors are using an artificial kidney machine, the same thing which we will be now discussing regarding the artificial kidney machine or the hemodialysis. Why this is essential? In order to clean the patient's blood. So the blood which is enriched with the waste products should be eliminated. In order to clean it, definitely dialysis needed to be done. You might also have heard these terms a lot number of times, right? Yeah. Yes. So let's see what is an artificial kidney. Let's define it. So what is an artificial kidney? It is a machine. It is having the same job as that of real kidneys. Nothing but it is carrying out the filtration of the blood. It is eliminating the waste substances. What will be the main waste? The urea, right? So it is also eliminating the urea as that of the our kidneys. So what is it doing? It is removing the nitrogenous waste products from the blood. So the function of it is the removal of the nitrogenous waste products. So what will be the process now being called as? The process of cleaning the blood using this artificial kidney device, it is called as a dialysis. So how this dialysis is working, how the dialysis machine we will be using. Let's try to check this. So how does a dialysis, hemodialysis machine work? So this is the dialysis machine in a most simplified manner. So it is inside this dialysis machine, there are presence of many plastic tubes, and that too the ones which are made with a semi-permeable membrane. Okay, So there is a presence of, you could see in the picture, there is a presence of many semi-permeable membrane plastic tubes. So tubes, they are placed in a dialyzing solution. This we are going to call it as dialyzing fluid. Okay, now I have a question for you. What do you think the dialyzing fluid composition should be? Can we take any material as a dialyzing fluid? No, there should be some specific composition. Otherwise, what happens? There is no proper filtration that happens. Okay, so in the picture you could carefully see, from the artery there is a taking up of the blood. It flows into the dialysis machine, which contains a network of plastic tubes containing the semi-permeable membrane, which are dipped inside a dialyzing fluid. Okay, now what will be the function of it? There should be filtration process that should happen, right? And the filtered blood will be returned back to the patient, and the unwanted unnecessary substances will be collected within a container and it will be thrown out. Okay, now what does this dialyzing fluid should contain? It is containing some special ingredients so that there is an elimination of waste from the blood, but at the same time, whatever the useful substances are there within a patient's blood, that should not get eliminated out at any cost. So the dialyzing fluid will be the same concentration of salts and water as that of normal blood. The normal blood we are having the concentration, right? The same, but it is not having any nitrogenous waste. It does not have urea, it does not have ammonia. Then what else it contains? It have water, it have glucose at the normal level. What else? It have salts, the electrolytes like sodium, potassium, calcium, chloride and bicarbonate. The only thing that it does not have will be the urea. No urea. Why no urea? Our main purpose is the removal of the nitrogenous substance, urea, which is not required. That is the reason the dialyzing fluid is not having any urea in it. Okay, so now what will be the dialysis process steps? What will be the steps of the hemodialysis? Let me tell you. Remember, first the blood is taken from the patient through a tube which is connected to an artery in the arm. The blood is passing through the dialyzer tube, nothing but the plastic tubes with semi-permeable membrane. Whenever the blood is flowing within the semi-permeable membrane lining, next there will be waste removal by the process of diffusion. Means concentration in the blood is higher when compared with that of dialysing fluid. So all the waste substances will be now entering the dialysis fluid. Now the urea and toxin will be entering the dialysis fluid. Now we have the cleansed patient's blood. The blood again should be given back to the patient, right? So the clean blood is returning. It is sent back to the patient's body again. So this is what happens with respect to the dialysis. Got the point, everyone? In the hemodialysis, what is happening? Any questions? So let me check if any question. Let me take a big question out of it. Okay, so I could see a person is producing very little urine on a hot summer day. Why it is happening? You know why it is happening on a hot summer day? We already discussed this now. There is a elimination of more amount of water through the sweat. Why? To keep our body cool. So when there is a more elimination of the sweat, what will be happening? More reabsorption of water and less water elimination, less urine production. Okay, simple question, simple answer. Now moving on, how the hemodialysis machine is working. The waste substances are getting moved into the dialysing fluid, right? So like glucose and salts will be retained within the blood, but the unwanted substances, urea, ammonia or any kind of toxins will be eliminated out. So there are certain points to remember over here. The functioning is very similar to that of natural kidneys, but no reabsorption over here. Okay, whatever the waste that is excreted, it is excreted. Then there is no reabsorption. There is no returning of any of the substances to the bloodstream. Okay, now the points to remember over here, once again I reiterate in a quick manner. The artificial kidney device have many plastic tubes with a semi-permeable lining being placed in a tank which is filled with a dialysing fluid. So dialysing fluid composition we have seen, right? Now what happens? The dialysing fluid has the same osmotic pressure as that of blood, but it is not having any kind of nitrogenous waste like urea. Whenever we are taking the patient's blood, it is getting flown through the tubes. The waste are getting passed through the membrane, and particularly from the membrane of the dialyzer tubes into the dialysing fluid, they are following the process of diffusion. Whatever the blood that is cleansed, again it is sent back to the patient. Okay, why dialysis is needed? What is the necessity of dialysis? Why? Because people who are experiencing the kidney failure, they require a chance for the survival, definitely, right? In the living world, everybody requires a chance for the survival. So people with kidney failure need the dialysis regularly until they are having their kidneys recovery, or they are receiving a kidney transplant. Otherwise what happens? There are chances that nitrogenous waste products will be getting built up and they might be damaging the body parts also. Okay, so that's the reason. So as we have told, if kidney failure cases, there is an option of transplantation as well. Now let's quickly understand about organ donation, but before that, let me take a break for drinking water. Please allow me a moment. I shall be quicker. I'll be coming back. Thank you so much, students, for allowing the time for having some water. Okay, let me check if any questions. Okay, I could see. Uh, Patients with kidney failure require dialysis even though other excretory organs are being present. Okay, the question is, what is the necessity for going with the dialysis even though other excretory organs are being present? This is the question. Okay, students, remember why we are going for dialysis: for the elimination, for the removal of the unwanted substances. What are the other excretory organs apart from kidney? Lungs and skin. From lungs, carbon dioxide gets eliminated. Through skin, little amount of salts, little amount of substances will be getting eliminated. It can be little amount of urea. But what about the major quantity of urea? Can it be getting eliminated through the secondary excretory organs? No. The primary excretory organ, kidney, is very essential. So that is the reason a person need to go for dialysis to remove the unwanted substances. Okay, for the removal of nitrogenous waste substances, other excretory organs cannot work or cannot function properly. That's why it's mandatory for going through the hemodialysis. Okay, I hope I'm clear. Now coming to the organ donation, how we can describe it? This is so simple. We can say it is like an act of kindness where a person is allowing either one or more organs from the body to to be given for someone, and especially kidneys, we are giving only one. We cannot donate two kidneys. If we donate two kidneys, then how we are going to survive? Definitely no. So only one, and this with respect to the type of donor they are telling. It might be, the organ donation is of various kinds, not only kidneys. Some can go for the cornea part, the eye cornea part will be there, right? Some can go for bone marrow. So many things will be there. An act of kindness where a person is allowing either one or more organs to be given for others, so that the others have a chance for survival. Okay, when the organs are not working properly, when they are getting damaged, when they are no longer working properly, the organ donation will be very helpful. Okay, now, so why organ donation is needed? So simple, we all knew the answer. Why? When a person's organ simply stops working, or when the person is facing serious illness, like it might be kidney failure, liver disease, heart diseases, or sometimes when the person have met with accident or injuries, or the least scenario, it can be birth defect also. Because of this, some organs of persons might not function properly, and there is a chance for the organ donation in order to keep them alive. When medicines and treatments are not at all getting utilized for curing the damaged organ, definitely the doctors are going to suggest for the organ transplantation, where there is a replacement of the damaged organ of a patient, and the patient, we are calling the patient as recipient. Okay, and from a healthy organ, from a healthy person, we are replacing this recipient's organ. Then the recipient, we have seen it is a patient, right? Then what will be the person, healthy person, who is donating his valuable organs? That will be the donor. So transplantation corresponds for replacing the damaged organ to the patient, and that too with a healthy organ from another healthy person. Okay, so what is organ transplantation? What we can consider it to be? It is like a medical procedure where a healthy organ being surgically removed from whom? From the donor, and being placed inside whom? Inside the recipient. Okay, so after receiving the transplantation, the new organ, it should adjust itself to the new patient, new person, right? So the new organ, it will be taking some time for adjusting within the recipient's body, not much of the time again, only some time, okay? And it will be helping the patient in surviving. So common organs and tissues which can be donated, of course, a lot. We can see the organs like kidneys, hearts and lungs, lung tissue particularly, liver tissue, okay, and cornea, skin, bone marrow, all this can be donated, particularly the cornea present in the eye part. So importance and benefits of organ donation, what will be the importance? Of course, for the survival, for increasing the chance of survival of various persons, to save multiple lives, to give hope for families. If it is a single person, it is not the single person we are helping with, it is the entire family, because on that person many people are having a hope. So it gives hope to families, the quality of life gets improved. So kidney patients, if they receive the kidney transplantation, they need no longer depend upon the dialysis. Na? And apart from that, it helps in medical research and education. Now the question comes, who can donate the kidneys, or who can donate the organs? Any person, irrespective of age, irrespective of gender, irrespective of caste, creed, religion or anything, any person can donate, go for the donation of the kidneys. Okay, it is depending upon the criteria which part is getting donated and the health conditions of a particular donor. Okay, and donors will be again of two types. One who is alive, whose live organs can be taken. If it is a kidney, with one kidney a person can survive, so one kidney can be donated to a particular patient. If it is if it is the ones that cannot be taken from the live donor, then definitely from the dead person they are going to depend. So dead person or brain dead cases, there is a chances for organ donation. Okay. Now coming to the excretion in plants. So far we have been discussing regarding the excretion with respect to the animals, particularly we have been understanding about the human beings. Now let's emphasize on excretion in plants. Okay, give me a moment. Okay, a question I could see. Why does urine formation not stop completely when if a person is having less water? You know, even a person is having less water, the urine formation is not stopping completely. Why? What is the necessity of urine formation? There should be elimination of unwanted substances. So irrespective of whether you drink water or less water, more water or less water, the elimination should get carried out. Urine formation is not going to get stopped. Urine formation should be done for the removal of unwanted or waste nitrogenous substances. Urine should be eliminated from the body. It's not like if it is less water consumption, there is complete stoppage of urine. No, no, no. It's not like that. Even though it is less water, there should be elimination of waste substances. Okay, no stoppage of urine production. Now, coming to the excretion in plants, plants are also producing waste materials as the humans or the other living organisms do during their various metabolic activities. Like what they perform generally, they undergo respiration, photosynthesis, and various kinds of chemical reactions. So, do you think they are having special organs? They do not have special organs. They do not have kidneys, they do not have lungs for the removal of the waste material, right? So there should be elimination. So what they are doing, they are using natural methods for managing and for releasing the waste substances. So what might be the waste substances? What will be in photosynthesis? What will be in respiration? Tell me. Photosynthesis it is oxygen, respiration it is carbon dioxide. So we can see how plants are removing gaseous waste, oxygen and carbon dioxide. During photosynthesis, oxygen getting produced as byproduct. During respiration, there is a release of carbon dioxide. So how through they should be getting eliminated out through the openings present on the surface of the leaf called as stomata. The guard cells opening and closing of stomata will be under the control of guard cells. Okay, so particularly in the leaf it is the stomata, if it is a stem it will be the lenticles. Okay, in this way the gaseous substances are getting eliminated or removed. So plants also lose water through the form of water vapor from the surface, that is the transpiration. So transpiration helps in temperature control and removal of the extra waste matter. It's not like all the water that the plant is uptaking, it is going to utilize all the water. No, no, no. It will be definitely utilizing some as per its requirement. Some should be eliminated. It occurs with the help of the transpiration. Now, storage of waste inside the plant parts. This is also a method which the plant uses. So, plants can store many waste. You know, in our body, when the toxicity builds up, it will be damaging our organs. But in case of plant, without harming themselves, many waste can be stored. Okay, why this is possible? Because plant tissues are dead cells in majority, not all. Okay, again I tell not all the plant tissues, majority of the plant tissues are the dead cells. So the storage can be possible. They do not affect living cells in any kind or any manner. So storage of waste inside the plant parts, where the storage occurs in the leaf, in the bark, in the fruit or in the old xylem. Then how this should be eliminated means the waste are leaving the plant. When the leaf fall, definitely there will be a season when the leaf is falling, when the bark is getting peeled due to some natural things, and when the fruit drops from the plant, there is an elimination. And what else we can see over here? The waste getting stored as gums and resins. You might have seen these gums and resins part. Na? Some plants will not be able to have this, but some plants will be able to have the production of gums and resins. So what they will be doing, they will be converting the waste that they are getting generated into the gums and resins, or sometimes the latex. They will be like very thicky sticky substances which generally get stored inside the stems. Like if you take examples of few, pine and deodar trees, what they produce the resin. Rubber plants, what they produce the latex. And acacia trees, they produce the gum. So there is an elimination of these substances or the waste substances as gums or resins or latex. So the substances are being pushed out of the plant, particularly through the bark, the cracks in the bark. We have observed it a lot of times. Through the bark cracks, there is an elimination of these substances. Okay, so storage inside the vacuole, sometimes inside the plant cells, there is a storage, and the vacuoles will be acting like a large storage sacks for storing unwanted chemicals, the bitter substances, the toxic substances, okay, will be getting stored over here. So excretion into soil, sometimes we could see the roots will also be releasing the waste substances directly into whom? Into the soil, as they are associated with the ground level. Okay, so the waste will be getting mixed with the soil particles, with the soil water specifically, and they will be getting removed from the plant body. So I hope so far you are understanding the concept. Yes or no? Are you clear with the concept, everyone? So let me tell you the method with respect to the excretion within the plants and the waste removal. So through stomata and lenticels, carbon dioxide, oxygen by the diffusion process, water vapor through a transpiration, and transpiration corresponds for loss of water in the form of water vapor, falling leaf bark fruits. The waste removed will be the stored chemical waste, gums, resins and latex, the waste that are getting removed from the stems. And vacuole storage, toxins, toxic salts, bitter chemicals will be stored within the large vacuoles. And the roots, they release the waste into the soil water. From the soil water, there is an elimination of the substances. Okay, got the point, everyone? Huh. So finally, we are at the end of today's session. What we discussed regarding the concept of excretion. We understood regarding the ways of waste removal, the main parts of the human excretory system: kidneys, ureter, urinary bladder, and urethra. Later on, we understood how the excretion will be happening. We understood the structural and functional unit of kidney, that is nephron. What parts does it contain? Parts of the nephron and the function we have seen, right? The renal tubule and the Malpighian body. Renal tubule comprises of PCT, DCT and loop of Henle. Malpighian body comprises of Bowman's capsule and glomerulus. Okay, so finally the formation of urine. This is what we have been discussing in today's session. I hope you are clear with the concept. Yes, so students, keep learning the concept. If you are having any questions or queries, you can please feel free to get connected with us through the chat box. Okay, thank you so much. Have a great evening.